Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Chronicles of Hollywood History, past, present, and future. Welcome. And here now, Corey Gomez.
Hello everyone and welcome to Chronicles of Hollywood History, past, present, and future. Today I am joined by a man that I have liked since my childhood when I first started learning martial arts. I'm talking about a competitor, Black Belt Hall of Fame, one of the stars of Revenge of the Ninja, Mr. Keith Vitali. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
My pleasure, Corey. I'm really excited about this. Looking forward to this.
I love Revenge of the Ninja. I gotta say, right off, that's if there's ever a timeless, violent ninja movie, it's Revenge of the Ninja.
And believe it or not, when I filmed it, during the filming of it, I thought it was overly just vicious and I just couldn't believe all the blood and but I had no perspective at the time. It was my first movie. So I just assumed all the movies were this violent and bloody for martial arts movies, and that's not really the case. Our show really wanted to show a dark side of the ninja and utilizing all of his weapons and then the blood and guts and all of that. But I just remember being my first film going, oh my gosh, this is the most violent thing I've ever seen in my life.
Now, you got started originally before movies. When did you start studying martial arts?
In 71, and I was I was in college, and a friend of mine, I was on a track scholarship. And how fortunate for me, I've been blessed my whole life. Everything that's happened in my life is like I've been at the right place at the right time. So my background was track, distance running. And I was pretty good at it, so I had a scholarship to college. And I came home after my first year of running distance for this college in South Carolina. And my high school friend just started taking martial arts and invited me to come one of the classes. I met my instructor, John Roper, who's an adopted name. He's Korean. Just a badass, tough Korean. And I met him that day. I was so blown away, so captivated by the martial arts. I had never seen it before. I came home, called up my track coach, and got out of my scholarship, canceled my scholarship, which really upset him and my parents. And I said, I'm sorry, but I just fell in love with something new. I transferred to USC. The next day, I went into the admissions office and got accepted to South Carolina, USC, University of South Carolina, and I started taking with John Roper at that time. Within a couple of years, I had worked really hard. I was a white belt for over a year, and it was very demanding. It was during the tough times of martial arts where it was blood and guts and schools challenge everybody. But within 2 years, I took over the program, received my black belt, and then I was able to put a team together, a USC team together, and our team was small, but we had the funds from USC at the time, and it allowed us to be able to travel and compete. In spite of ourselves, I did it because I just wanted to enjoy college and travel, have fun, but by traveling and competing with the best, all of us got better. And then our little small team, we had 3 members from that team eventually become top 10 in the United States at one time, all from that little that little college team we put together in the 70s. So that's how I started. And then I got my big break with Priscilla McDonald's with Canon Films and almost lost it because I was teaching class and my wife, who wasn't my wife at the time, Kathy, she was working the desk at the time, the office. She comes out and she says, listen, there's a phone call from California. Somebody wants us to talk to you. So I pick up the phone, and this lady goes, hi, my name is Priscilla McDonald. I work for Canon Films. We'd like to sign you for a film called Revenge of the Ninja. And I said, wonderful. First of all, tell Mike Geneva. Now, Mike Geneva is my best friend. He's always pulling stunts like this, pranks. I said, tell Mike to kiss my ass, and I hang up. And I go back to teaching class. So the phone rings again. Kathy comes and gets me. She says, this girl's really kind of upset, needs to talk to you again. So I pick up the phone. She goes, first of all, do not hang up on me again. You'll lose a 3-movie deal. And she says, I don't know who this Mike guy is, but do not hang up this phone. And I went, oh my God, this is for real. And then that's how it started. And then they flew me to California, met Menachem and the crew and showed everybody. And Steve Lambert was the stunt coordinator, who I thought was phenomenal. I worked my whole life with phenomenal people, the Chinese people, stunt teams, and just great stunt teams. I thought Steve Lambert was as good as I ever saw. He was just wonderful. So I was so blessed to hook up with a good team. And then our film, it was the first film ever in the martial arts history to get picked up by MGM, and then they actually put it in every theater in the United States. The first film ever. So my first film, I break into films as a star role, and then it also gets picked up by a major studio. And they had a premiere for the film in Atlanta for me, and then they had also one in Los Angeles. And then the film just did phenomenal. Started a ninja craze.
Oh, and it's, excuse me, and it holds up. Like, some of the older karate movies, at least to me, they don't all hold up as well. Revenge of the Ninja is just as good today as it was, back in '83.
Yeah, and it's kind of odd. People talk more about that film, and I've done a lot of great films with Jackie Chan and everything, but even my son, he still thinks that's his favorite movie. He used to, imitate Shokasugi, the way a ninja runs, and do the rolls and all this stuff, and people just love that film. As a matter of fact, I did another film, and it's called Blood Brothers. Not Blood Brothers, but it was with Brandon Gaines and American Kickboxer 1.
Mm-hmm.
And
I just watched that yesterday, actually, to get ready for this.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. So that's also with great guys, with Brad Morris and John Barrett. But Brandon Gaines we did with Super Fights. And this guy was a child prodigy genius, and he was starting the film, and I was the bad guy. I love being the villain. Oh, my gosh, it's so fun. And so during our takes, he had memorized, he had seen Revenge of the Ninja so many times, he knew all the dialogue from that film. So right before the director would go, right before he'd go action, Brandon would be reciting my lines that I had forgotten from Revenge of the Ninja. I go, Brandon, how in the world? He's I love that film. He said, I know all the dialogue from that film. That's incredible.
Oh, it's one of the greatest movies ever made. I showed it to my son when he was 8. It's one of his favorite martial arts films.
That's cool. And so how wonderful for that. Guess what? My second film was Pat Johnson is this very famous person as a martial artist from Los Angeles. And then he calls me up next and says, how would you like to be in a film with Jackie Chan? But you have to leave in 2 days and fly to Barcelona, Spain. I went, I've got my passport, and I got on a plane. I met Benny Kiedis at the time. Then I flew to Barcelona. I did the film Wheels on Mills with Sammo Hung and also Jackie Chan, and it was phenomenal. One of the best experiences of my life. Now, you see, now that movie, as I was filming it, being a part of it, I thought that movie was going to be a blockbuster. That film was, those fight scenes were so good without the editing, the post-production, without the music. It was just pure, phenomenal martial arts skills. These guys were phenomenal. Jackie was doing stuff, and I'm like going, oh my gosh. Whereas Revenge, they had to do the post-editing, add some dramatic music and all the sound effects, all that stuff, and it makes it real dramatic. Whereas with the Wheels on Mills, it just blew me away just watching it cold, just watching it as we did it.
Now, in Revenge of the Ninja, is it true that Shokasugi, it was already going to be an R-rated movie, but is it true that he wanted to keep adding more and more violence to the script?
Yes. They had two versions. They had a PG version, but they never could get it because it had too much blood. But we would do two endings sometimes for a scene. And like one scene, like on the rooftop, the somebody would get stabbed or shot because he's killing almost everybody. He has like literally, how many weapons did he have? 20, 30 weapons. And I kept on giving Show a hard time going, how are you getting all these weapons in to justify you pulling them out of your rear or whatever? No problem. Audience won't know. They don't care. But it was just that he would do that, but then sometimes the director would go, cut. All right, let's do it again, but this time let's add more blood. And they would literally take a hose of blood and shoot it. I said, what's this for? And Sam Festenberg was our director, who's phenomenal. And I loved him. It's his first film ever, though. And he goes, we're doing it for another audience. Some markets want more blood than others. So they had two versions.
Yeah, because I remember on the rooftop when Show finally kills Braden, you get a nice little spray there, when he hits him with the... I believe, and I correct me if I'm wrong, but the mask that Braden, the evil ninja, wore, it's actually in the martial arts museum, I believe.
I think it is. And Stephen Lambert doubled Shokusui because Sho couldn't play the good ninja and the bad ninja. He couldn't do both, right? Mm-hmm. And so Stephen Lambert played his role. He killed me. Honestly, he was the one that killed me. But over the years, I've had so many fans around the world that really were upset. Were upset at the fact that I got killed in that film, and I wasn't supposed to be killed. The show demanded it. He was so upset with it. Was just he was one of these kind of guys, good or bad, however you want to interpret it. He didn't want anybody stealing his limelight when we were filming, and I was getting some good press at the time, and people liked what I was doing. And then he went to the director and he says, "Kill him off. I want him dead." And Shimonik says, "No, we want to use Keith for maybe other films." And he goes, "No, I want him dead. In fact, cut off his hands and cut off his arms to that point." And Sam goes, "No, I'm not going to cut limbs off, but we'll kill him off for you." And that's how I got killed in the film. But Steve Lambert was telling me a story. He told me this about a year ago. He was at one of these events with the director and some other people. It was one of these movie martial arts events where they have fans come in and all these martial artists sign autographs and the whole bit. Well, this one fan came in and he saw Steve Lambert, and Steve was telling the audience about he was the ninja who killed me. And they almost had to remove this guy from the audience. He was so upset that this guy killed me. So Stephen Lambert calls me up and he goes, "Hey, I just did one of these martial arts movies event, and you've got some rabid fans. They're still pissed off that I killed you." I went, "Oh my goodness."
Did he want you killed just because, he was afraid you'd upstage him, or was he just thinking of the whole trope of we gotta get revenge for the partner?
He just didn't want me in the next film. He wanted me out.
Well, that's not cool.
No, but sometimes not all actors are cool. But he was fun. We got along great. We never had any animosity between us. But he knew what he wanted. Yeah. He was tough. He says, "Nope, this, because Mike Stone was in the End of the Ninja, the first one, and he got him out. Says, "No, if I'm going to do this, I want to by myself bring this Keith guy in." But little did he know that I was doing well. I was kind of well known in the country at the time with the martial artists because of who I was. But he was adamant. He says, "No, I want Keith dead." And he was never mad at me. It was a business, judgment that he made. He goes, "Keith's not going to be in the next one to steal my limelight." He said, "No, I'm going to kill him off right now." That's how he did it at the end.
Which is so dumb if you think about it, because there was no Revenge of the Ninja 2. There was just, none of them had any connection except for him. It was Ninja 3, which he was somebody different in that. You could have been somebody different, It was
right, and that's called short-sighted. And sometimes when people try to outshine somebody else, it never works to their advantage, ever. When you make somebody else look good, it's good for you as well. That's one of the 101s about stunt fighting, learning how to make whoever you're filming with do your best to make this person shine, and then you'll shine with them. You can't look good when he's looking bad. It doesn't work that way. But some people, just their mindset. But I would see from time to time. I fly to L.A. and see friends, and I stop by and say hi to the show. We were always friendly. But I remember the story. We had the guy from The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. Not Clint Eastwood, but one of the guy that played the Ugly. What was his name? Just went blank on him.
Is that Lee Van Cleef?
Yeah, Lee Van Cleef. So he goes to the movies with me, and so it's just Show, him, and I go to the movies together. And we're in L.A., and we're seeing Revenge of the Ninja. And we're loving it. I'm having a great time. And Show, he runs out in the middle of the film. He runs and tells the guy with the projector, says, "Turn it up louder. I need it louder." Then he runs back to the seat. And then, right before the film ends, he runs to the door. And so when the lights come on and everybody leaves, he's already standing at the door. And he's waiting for people to come out and recognize him. That's who Show was. You just have to love him for who he is. And Lee Van Cleef was cool. He was the coolest guy. We drank together and had fun together and tell stories. Just what a wonderful life I've had. But how fortuitous, how blessed am I to be in the Jackie Chan, that film, and then follow up with the Jackie Chan film. And it was wonderful because it was tough to do the Jackie Chan film because we shot in Barcelona where there's no SAG rules, and no SAG rules means they can abuse you. They can just work you to death, and which is fine. But you have to be the very best to work with them because it's so demanding. And when you're fighting two at one time, for example, and they got weapons, and you're trying to hit your mark and light and remember your moves and do it. I mean, it's just very demanding, but I loved every bit of it, and I got along with them very well, and it came off really good. Some of our fight scenes, that Benny's for sure, and one of mine as well, came off really good, where a lot of people think it's some of the best ever on film.
Yeah, because you had the big fight with Yun Biao.
Yeah, and he's so talented. He's so good. He was just remarkable. In that last scene, I had already knocked Benny. Well, sorry, I had already, in one of my scenes with Jackie Chan, I had knocked Jackie Chan out about 8 times, and too much power, and with my sidekick, and his stuntmen would get upset, producers get upset, except for Sammo Hung. Sammo Hung, he was the director. He'd look at, he's behind the camera, and as Jackie's on the ground in pain, Sam will look at me and go, Keith, do it again, but this time more power. I go, oh my gosh, what's he saying? And so it was always like that between those guys. And so it was very demanding, and so I had really hurt Jackie more times than I wanted to because it was my fault. I'm ready for a scene. It's a dramatic scene. Benny's got to do a fight scene with Jackie, and as Jackie Chan does a jump spinning kick over his head, they want me to slide up and hit him with a side kick before he hits the ground and drops. And, we're on the outside, and there's tractors there, and there's probably 100. They bust in Chinese, or no, they bust in Japanese. There's a Japanese tour bus, and they were all there watching. So there's hundreds and hundreds of people watching. And so I got ready for the scene, and all I had to do was slide up and hit him with the side kicks. No big deal. And so right before it started, Samuel looks at me and goes, Keith, what are you doing? I said, nothing, I'm ready. He goes, change sides. Would you my left side forward? And I went, oh, no, I don't think he will be kicking my left side. I'm a good kicker with it, but I have no control with it. I'll kick too hard with it. He goes, okay, we'll change our whole production, the cameras, lighting, everything, because you don't want to kick, being facetious. And I just said, no, sir, I'm sorry. I changed sides. I said, I'm ready. Let's go. And for 8 solid times, every time I hit Jackie, I'd hurt him. I hit him too hard. And he'd go down and just in pain. So later, Samuel loved my sidekick, and he said, Keith, I've come up with a brand new scene I'm going to put in the movie just for your sidekick. And that's when he goes, and he brought this, the next day or a couple of days later, he had this Volkswagen Bug. And he had the actors, and he says, this first actor, I want you, when he opens the door, you grab him, flip him over your shoulders, and kick him out. Then the next guy's going to jump down on the ground. I want you to pause, slide up, hit him with a sidekick. I want to see if you can pick him up, the stuntman, and have him hit the back of the bus and rock the bus. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, Sam was just like vicious. I said, sure, I could do it because I was known worldwide for my sidekick. So I said, sure, let's do it. So we do the take, and I flipped the first guy, and I already worked with the guy, the stunt guy. So when you come out of the bus, go up on one foot like you're getting ready to hit me. That way you'll take some weight off, and I can pick you up a little easier. So I had this all planned. So he jumps down, and I slide up, and I hit him with my sidekick. Oh, my goodness, it was beautiful. I hit him. I pick his entire body up, and he lands in the bus, and he goes out. He's just out. And so everybody claps on the set because it was just a beautiful scene. And I start walking away like I'm finished. Sammo Hung goes, where are you going? I literally said these words. I said, look, he's dead. I can't film anymore. He's dead. And he goes, no, we have more Chinese. There was a line of stuntmen all scratching their head going, oh, crap. And one at a time, I had to do these takes over and over, hitting fresh guys and just dropping them. That's what I meant by there's no SAG in Europe.
Your leg had to be numb by the end of that.
Oh, no. I got plenty where they came from. I loved it.
Well, then you did... now it's considered a classic, No Retreat, No Surrender 3, which I always kind of laugh that, kind of like Blood Fist, they're none of the films have connection to each other, but they leave them. But Blood Brothers, the fight at the end in that airport hangar, that's a top five. That is a top five. That's probably a top 3 martial arts fight in
You,
any, I put it up against anything.
and a lot of people think it's hokey because the bad guy wearing the wig, um, he didn't even know martial arts, and they
Really?
had no, not at all, and he
Wow.
was he was doubled most of the time. So it was just Lauren and I, but the whole idea is that we loved that last scene. Now that last scene probably last 10 minutes, but it took us 7 days, probably 12, 13 hours a day shooting it, just to get that last scene done. And then because you can imagine all the kicks and all the entire fight scene just takes tremendous amount of time because you do them in 3 or 4 kick segments. You'll go, 1, 2, 3, 4, cut, and then the director will go cut, and then instead of move the cameras or move to the next, if he's not happy, he'll do it 20, 30 times, and then you do the next set of techniques. So it just lasts days and days and days. Now then your legs do give out. Your legs do get tired. And by the end, you're just totally just almost in pain going, wow, this is hard, but you just do it. And, but that last fight sequence was pretty cool because it was timed well. We both had pretty nice kicks and moves, and Laura and I, we talk about it all the time. We're very proud that we did that together.
He said it was like 150 degrees in that hangar you were shooting at down there.
Oh yeah, well, I actually did a film with Brandon Gaines, again for the same Chinese company, Eugene and Seasonal, and Keith Strandenberg, my good friend, he's the writer producer of all these films we're talking about. So Keith was there, and I had to do our last fight scene with Brandon. Now it was 105 degrees in a warehouse during the summer, and they would bring in chunks of ice, and put air conditioners on them, and then the fans would blow over the ice to cool us down, and then they'd have to cut it off because you couldn't have the sound when you're filming. And we filmed the same thing, 7 days, over and over, and we were totally just exhausted. And that last fight scene, people in the audience, because you have people watching it in the movie, and they would pass out because it was too hot. So you can imagine, we'd have to get doctors in all the time and assist them for the heat. You can imagine how difficult it was for Brandon and I to be doing the kicks over and over and over for days and days.
Now, and you got, in the beginning of No Retreat, No Surrender 3, you actually legitimately did hurt your hand, and that's why they had to work it into where you had like a bandage on it, correct?
A day or two before, we were playing around at John Pravat's karate school. He's a friend of ours down in Florida, and Clearwater. And Brandon and Lauren did it first. He did a wonderful flying sidekick, and we're kind of like showing off, to each other. So he goes off and he does his flying sidekick with 2 feet, and somebody's holding the bag, and he hits the top of the bag, and then he bounced back. He said, "How about that?" I said, "I can do it." And then I go slide up, I run up, I jump, I chamber, I love it. Hit him perfect with 2 feet. The guy left. The guy holding the bag left, just walked away. So when I hit the bag moved, I fell straight down, it was concrete. And I landed on my wrist, and a bone popped right out of my wrist, straight up in the air. It was awful. They wrapped it up, took me to the hospital. 2 days later, they gave me the decision. I said, "No, let's shoot it. I want to stay in the film." And then they wrote in the scene, in the bank scene, at the beginning of the film, where I get shot. And that's how they justified me wearing the cast.
I make no shame in admitting I'm not the biggest fan of the first No Retreat, No Surrender. I thought it was a little hokey there with the ghost of Bruce Lee, but 2 and 3 are good, and 3 is considered now such a timeless classic. I mean, was that a real challenging one for you to make? Because I mean, a lot of the scenes in that one were very, very elaborate.
Out of all the movies, even the Jackie Chan film and all the ones I've ever done, this was the most difficult. It was just really hard. The techniques were hard. The movement, just everything that we were trying to do was just a little harder for that film. So it was the most demanding of all my films. And I enjoyed it, but I mean, I was like a kid in a candy store doing Revenge of the Ninja and also Wheels on Mills. Revenge of the Ninja because it's my first film, and I'm just like a kid making movies. And then my second film was working with the great Jackie Chan. And Benny Urquidez and I, who starred as the villains, we said, because we knew Jackie took so many risks that he would probably die in this film. And we would be famous because he's going to die anytime. He's doing crazy stuff. And before we shot one scene, he sat us down and he had a clip of his outtakes and clips of his stuff, all of them where he got injured. And he said, "Let me show you where I got injured in all my past movies." And I said, "Oh my God, why do you do that?" He goes, I have to do all my own stunts and make it real." And I looked at Benny, I said, "We're going to be both famous because we're going to be in Jackie Chan's last film. This guy's crazy." He's still kicking. That guy, nothing can stop him. He's really a good person. He's talented. My goodness.
Then you did American Kickboxer. That was a little bit different film, just because it wasn't like like I said, I just watched it yesterday. Not as watch it for like the 10th time yesterday. Not as violent slam bang. It was more of a kickboxer film.
Yeah, it wasn't more. It was more of a kickboxer versus more of a martial arts film where you use your techniques, your kicks and punches to beat the bad guy or whomever. Well, this one was legitimate full contact, and we flew to South Africa to film this, John Baird and I, and the guy Brad Morris is the villain, who's actually a top-rated a fighter, full contact fighter, living in South Africa. So he didn't play his part. That's who he was. As crazy and wild, that's who he was in real life as well. He eventually moved here in the States and now lives in New York, and we're all friends. John and I speak to John almost daily by texting. Sometimes we call, but every day we text back and forth. Can you imagine that? Brandon Gaines, I just got back from, and had dinner with him, and then also Stephen Lambert, and my director from Revenge of the Ninja, Art Camacho. I did another movie with. I all met them in California, and had dinner with, and spent some time with. So, one great benefit of doing these films is not only do they last forever and it's fun making them, but you make lifelong friends, and nothing's better than that.
Art told me to tell you hi, by the way. He speaks very highly of you.
Oh, he's such a good guy. And I give him a hard time because the sucker never ages. He's a vampire. If you follow him around, I promise you, follow him. And he's sucking on somebody's neck or something because that sucker looks the same as he did 20 years ago. And he's such a great guy. And I loved at least have an opportunity where he directed me in The Cutoff with Michael DePasquale and Joe Lewis, and just wonderful time we had in North Carolina. And Art's talented; he's really good. But one of the things you want to do is before your time is up, you want to work with some good directors. You want to work with some good actors, and again, I've been so blessed to have spent time with some of the greats of all time.
Oh, he's such a nice guy. I told him about an interview I'd been wanting to do for years, and he said, "Let me make a couple calls." And boy, I tell you, he did in a couple of days what I'd been working on 12 years to get. So, I mean, yeah, he's a great guy.
Well, just recently, in February of this year, the week coronavirus started, when my wife and I got on the plane, we flew to Los Angeles because I was the Los Angeles Museum, Mike Minnesota, was giving me an award for in Los Angeles. So it was phenomenal. I mean, I really enjoyed it. So I go down there, and people putting on these masks for the first time, and I was like, well, what in the world's going on? And what they did was they had a Keith Vitali Day, and I received a nice certificate for Keith Vitali. And friends of mine in the martial arts and friends of mine from the movie industry came out, and they got up to speak. And my director from Revenge was there. Stephen Lambert was there. Art Camacho got on the stage and spoke. John Barrett got up and spoke. And I had a lot of friends, and they were playing, with music already. They had like my story already and video with music. And I stopped everything one time, and I said, "Everybody, I'm still here. I'm still alive." It was like a wake, and it was wonderful, just wonderful. And then Mike just told me the other day that not only did I get the Keith Vitali Special Day, part of the museum in Los Angeles, but I was this year's recipient of the Hall of Fame. So as soon as the COVID mess is over, they're flying me back out to receive that award. So I'll see all my friends again when I go out there.
And that's a pretty big, that's a huge honor. That's for martial art. And then, you even got to do, because, as you started to wind down, You even got to be in it's my second favorite Gary Daniels film, Blood Moon, which probably the best serial killer martial art film, because yes, fans, there have been quite a few of those. That's a great movie, and boy, Gary's another one. That guy can kick.
And Darren Chevalier and him together.
Yes.
Oh my goodness! I just remember I was like 40 years old at the time, looking at them, going, "I'm so glad I'm a little older now because I sure as hell can't do what they can do now." You know, I was a fighter turned martial artist, and these guys seem to be. I know they're fighters too, but they were just pure martial artists. There's nothing they couldn't do. If I said do a front flip, jump spinning kick into a back flip, you know, they could just do it. They wouldn't even think twice. Whereas I would go, "Are you not that side? My better side is this side." You know, and so and I really enjoyed doing that and working with them. And Keith Stradberg again is one of my best friends, and he was producer. And I was my first co-production where I found the studio. I found everything. Keith said he lives up in Pennsylvania at the time, and he said, "Can you find us a place?" And I went and negotiated for the studios and got everything set up. And then Keith flew down, and we produced a movie together. And two of the films I've taken to the film markets in Cannes and Milan and helped Keith sell them. And it was just wonderful experience, just wonderful time. And Keith's one of the best athletes I had ever met. And so Keith and I, through all these years, we would play basketball, play tennis, throw football, and just, it's like having your brother with you everywhere you go. And we would just play half the time, so it was just what a wonderful life we've had. And we ride motorcycles together. We go up to our film action camp. We started this camp with Michael DePasquale. We ran it for about 10 or 12 years. Keith and I no longer do it, but we would bring people in from all over the world and teach them how to break into films. And one of the keys to breaking into films is everybody wants to be the star. And I go, no, your only job when you break into films is your job is to make the star look good. That's it. You're not the star. They're going to hire the star. Your job is to know your mark and your light and know how to really react, because the better you can react to one of their kicks or punches is called selling the technique. The better you can react to their technique, the better you make them look good. And if you can make that star look good, they're going to want you for other films. And that's been our key right there, teaching people how to react to techniques. And so Keith and I would take motorcycles, and our motorcycles, we would ride for a week up in New York and then go to the camp for a week. What a wonderful life. I mean, sometimes I still believe I've had one of the best lives ever, so I'm just so blessed that way.
What made you get out of doing films?
Well, living in Atlanta, and I had kids at the time, and they were getting older, and so I wanted to really concentrate on my schools. And so I still would write. I would still be in bit parts. I still would act sometimes. I did a couple of roles as in some TV shows, but most of the time I was kind of inactive. But I'm a little bit more active now. I'm writing again. I've written a screenplay on the life of Daniel Boone, and I found an investor, and everything looks really good. We hope to be shooting either next fall or in 2021 or the spring the following year. And it's been a life dream for me to write this. It took me 10 years to research Boone's life and then to write it and then put the production team together and find the funds and all of that. So it's, besides owning my own brokerage firm for insurance, that's my day job.
You wrote a book too, children's book.
Yeah, and so I finished my book during the coronavirus when it came out. My wife Kathy says, "Why don't you finish the book that you started years ago?" And I have a good friend, one of my best friends in life is a guy named Mike Geneva, and from Columbia, South Carolina, where I came from. And all of my heritage comes from South Carolina. All my fighters and friends, started there. And so Mike is one of the best, I guess, martial artists in the world. He was top 10 at one time. But he could be the best instructor I've ever seen on the mat teaching kids. So when I wrote this film, I had an illustrator draw Mike Geneva's face and then the cartoons in the book. And then as I started writing the book, my grandson, who's 10 at the time, just this year, he came over and he says, "Granddad, what are you doing?" I told him about the book. And he says, "You're too old to write a book about kids." And I looked at him, I said, "You're right." He goes, "Let me help you." And I used his words instead of mine. And I went, this is genius. Not my genius, it's his genius.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wrote the book. I got it put together, sold, and it's on Amazon now. It's doing wonderful. It's going to schools in South Carolina already. It's getting good national reviews. And believe it or not, earlier this year, 4 months ago, my grandson Sam couldn't go, but my wife and I, we drove to Columbia, South Carolina, went into the State House, into the Senate chambers, and I was awarded a special accommodation by the Senate for my book. And so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
This to me, because I did it with my grandson. And then I read the book to my grandson's class, and it was, how cool was that? It doesn't get any better. Nothing matters as much as that.
No, not at all. That's maybe they'll make a cartoon out of it.
Well, that's one of the things you're thinking about. We have a lot of different ways to go. I'm trying to get 2 more books done, but my investor wants me to write the second script, and so for the film. So yeah, I'm pretty busy. I stay pretty busy.
You still train?
Yeah, in my house I have a gym, and it's beautiful. And of course it has a big screen TV. It's got the weights, the bags, it's got everything in, and it's right. I have a nice home with a basement, and then the basement has all these rooms and TV rooms. But then my wife and I have our offices down there separately, and then we built a workout room, and it's gorgeous, mirrors and the whole bit.
Yeah, when the coronavirus hit, I got lucky because I knew the gyms were going to close, so I already had a bag. So, I picked up any weight I could, treadmills, everything. So now when I work out and train, I have the big TV down there too. So I watch all these old martial arts films as I work out. It's good motivation. Cool. That's how I had on American Kickbox the other day. So I said I like that one a lot too, because you get to see more of the full contact style as opposed to the movie style. I like the variations between the two.
Yeah, and it was a challenge too. I mean, and going back to my gym very quickly, I put a pool table. I've got one. I also put an arcade game, the basketball goals, where it has the net and you can shoot. I have all that in the workout as well. So between sets and kicking the bags, and I love hitting the bag and kicking the bag. It's like candy for me. And between my sets, I'll shoot some ball or play some pool. I'll go right back, or whatever I have on for music. So no, I'm living in the dream. I keep thinking, why did I have this when I was younger? This is so. I don't even want to leave. My house is so nice. We just love it here. But getting back to the film with Brad Morrison and John Barrett, they're both phenomenal martial artists, and like I said, they're good friends of mine to this day. But after a couple of weeks of shooting, we shot this film in South Africa, and for some reason the owner didn't care for the footage he was seeing for the dailies. So they hired me also, not only to co-star in the film, but also to do the choreography. And then it was a challenge because the 2 guys are just, these guys are both on testosterone times 10, and they don't want the other guy to look better than the other guy. So as I'm choreographing the fight scenes, sometimes they go, hey, you're making the other guy look too good, or, that kind of thing. And I go, guys, shut up. Let me do my work. But they're so conscious of, sometimes like Brad wouldn't take a hit. I said, this is so important now. This is getting close to the end of the fights. And this is where John Barrett's coming back to good guy. Brad, you've got to sell it. You've got to really respond. You've got to make him look good. Because if you respond well, it makes his techniques look powerful. And what he would do some takes is he would snap his chin like an inch only. And then John Barrett would go, cut. I go, guys. I go, Brad, you just made yourself look like Tarzan, because when he threw his best technique, it didn't phase you. And so you see, and that's why you have to be conscious of every move when you're making a film. And they finally both understood, and they did a good job.
Out of all the films you did, do you have a favorite?
I think my favorite to make, anything I did with Keith Strandberg, having my best friend on the set, was just fun. But the Jackie Chan film stands above all of them, because I knew that's making history. Anytime anybody does any film, I talk to Richard Norton or anybody, Cynthia Rothrock, anybody that's filmed with Jackie Chan, they've always had a high respect for their talent, but we know that it's a special category above our normal categories. And not that we haven't done good films, but Jackie Chan films are a little, a little higher status than ours. So that's probably my favorite.
The Lucky Stars one where Richard Norton fights Sammo Hung is one of my favorite scenes of all time. Just the agility that Sammo Hung possesses is it's always been amazing to me.
Well, he's phenomenal. And like you said, I knocked out Sammo Hung in one of the takes as well. I had to do the weapons, fight two at one time, and they had the weapons. And as I'm fighting both of them, I have to do a jump spinning kick, and I have to break the staff that Sammo has, and it's in the film. We did the take 50 times for a variety of reasons. Who knows why they say again. You just keep doing it. Mm-hmm. They had to change my suit because it was soaking wet. So but one of my takes, I hit Sammo Hung in the head instead of hitting the staff. I got too deep. And I didn't break the staff. I hit him with the heel in his head, and he went out. And I'm talking when he went out, there was 3 minutes. He didn't move. And we just stood there because we can't move. That's how they are. You have to be disciplined until he says cut. Well, he's the director. Well, he's unconscious.
He's unconscious.
So he was unconscious. We waited till he got up, and then he goes cut. Then he came and gave me a big hug, and he was happy that I did it. He's like, hey, let's do some more.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh my goodness.
Well, you had a little bit of padding on under your suit, I assume.
Oh, heck no.
Oh, really?
No, no, none of us did, and neither did Jackie Chan or Benny or any of us. None. Not an elbow. Not even cardboard. Nothing. And in the last scene, I had knocked out Sammo Hung. I had knocked out Jackie Chan, and they loved Benny to death. And young y'all probably like me more than the other guys like me, but I was hurting them, so how could they like me that much? So at the last scene in the castle, when I'm doing that running around scene where we jump in and then hits me over the head with the vase, well, Sammo comes in and they're holding, this is the last scene of the whole production. And they say, Keith, we try to figure out how we want to kill you off. And if you can believe this, I couldn't believe it at the time. I said, what do you mean? Well, just, you can just beat me up to kill me off. He goes, no, if you can understand this, I didn't. He says, Keith, people in Hong Kong wouldn't believe we could beat you because of your long legs. I said, what? He said, no, they wouldn't believe it. They wouldn't buy it. So we have to kill you some other way. And I remember saying, I agree with you, so guys don't have to smack me in the head. Anyway, he brings out this tray like you have for food at a restaurant. And on the tray, they had like 6 vases on it. And they're ceramic vases you'd pour wine out of. And he goes, listen, this last scene, you're going to do these moves. You're going to jump over this couch. And Byung's going to come up, he's going to hit you in the head with this. And that's how we kill you off. And I said, fine, I can do it. And I remembered I hit my fingers just to kind of touch the base to see how thick it was. It was thick as a brick. And I said, Sammo, this is kind of thick. If you hit somebody in the head with a carton, with a milk carton, just milk, a gallon of milk, you knock them out. Imagine a vase that's ceramic is hard. And it had wine in it, or champagne in it.
Jesus.
So I know, and I looked at him. He gave me a knife, and I started chipping, believe it, trying to chip some of the dents. I said, forget it, let's just do it. He goes, Keith, one take, or we're going to do every one of these vases on your head. And I went, oh my God. So they brought the whole production team in. It's not my payback because I've been hurting people, I guess.
Yeah.
And so they all sat there, and we did the scene, and it was one of my best scenes ever. I couldn't catch that guy. That he's so fast and phenomenal, and just, I had the highest respect for him. And I do my jumping sidekick, and I land on the couch, and he lands across. We both eye the picture. He reaches down, grabs it, and then he hits me over the head. And as he hits me over the head, I couldn't believe. First, he threw the wine glass in my face, and it burned my eyes. It just really hurt. So I put my hands over my eyes, and I went, oh my God, here it comes. And as he hit me so hard, my only thought was, I can't believe how stupid I am to allow them to knock my ass out, because this hurts like you won't believe. I take 2 steps, and I really go out. That's not me acting. That's me. I was smiling as I was going down because I was thinking how dumb I was to allow this. But when I woke back up, the whole crew was clapping. And it was my red badge of courage. I took it, and they were all happy with me at the end.
Now, because of course you died in Revenge of the Ninja, but you didn't die. Excuse me, in Blood Brothers, No Retreat, No Surrender 3. In fact, it ends where you and Lauren
Right.
Avalon, the brothers, finally make up. Are you surprised there was not a follow up to that?
No, but believe it or not, Lauren and I have been talking about a follow up, and Lauren's written a few scripts, and that I've been reading, and it doesn't continue on or have anything to do with our characters, but it's just us working together again. I just told him, I said, listen, I'm a writer. I said, do me a favor, if you're going to write me a part in, I said, make me a little taller, a little stronger, and a little smarter if you can. He said he'd do his best.
Well, your moves together, the succession that you two had in that final scene was, it was breathtaking. There's no other.
Thank you.
And I'm saying that as someone who studies martial arts, to see two people that could move the way you guys did, just in sync. That was a thing of beauty.
Yeah, we both are known for our kicks, and both have a Korean background, and it was wonderful to showcase our skills and again, like when I was doing the Wheels on Mills, Benny's techniques with Jackie were very short, elbows, knees, and not a lot of circular stuff, whereas the director really liked my techniques because I had long legs, and the longer ones are more aesthetically beautiful at times when you can do spinning techniques. Of course, everybody likes spinning techniques or those kind of high kicks. But, so both of us were pretty equal with our kicking ability, and both of us showcased that, and it turned out really nice. We were really happy with the final product.
Some of your real nice kicks, I thought, too, was in the, I don't know.
Garage seat.
Some people say it's a little laughable, but I think it's still pretty badass when you and Shokasuke fought the low-rent village people in the park. For some reason, this village people dress gang that hangs out at children's park. You threw some beautiful. You had the one guy's arm, and I think you hit him with about 6 or 7 heel kicks to the head there.
Yeah, and believe it or not, there's a big guy named Steve Gatorwolf. He's a native Indian, lives in Utah. He's 6'5", weighed 350 pounds, and he's a professional wrestler. And he brought Hulk Hogan, and he brought in Andre the Giant, and all these great guys. Brought them all. I got a chance to meet them all to the set. Phenomenal. So as I'm fighting him, they cut so much of my fight scene out with him because it was so dynamic. It was so wonderful. And the reason I can say that is because he was dynamic. Being a wrestler, he could pick me up over his head, and he could braid me over his knee, then hold me up with his, by my throat, and then throw me. We did all of that. I didn't know how to do all that stuff, but he's a professional wrestler. He taught me how to do the falls and how to do all of that like you see on TV. I was amazed, just simply amazed how wonderful it looked. And some of our takes, he'd hold me up over my head, like I'd do a jump kick, and he'd catch me and pick me up over his head. He'd bring me over his knees, and I would just go, and I lay on the ground. Shimolik, the director, would go, cut, 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 and everybody run. I go, what are you doing? He goes, he broke your back. I go, no, he didn't. He goes, oh my God, it looks like you're done. He broke you in half. I said, no, it's just acting. That's him. He knows how to do all that. But 2 or 3 times they had to stop the filming because they thought he really hurt me. But he just knows how to do it. None of those moves got in the film. And you can think, because I found out it was Shokasuke who sat in the editing for every one of for the post-editing. He wasn't allowed to go in.
Do you think we'll ever see a director's cut?
Oh my gosh, I would love that. I had to talk to Shimolik about that. I don't even know if back then, it's so old where they shot them, I don't know if they kept the footage. It wasn't digital at the time. It was actually, 35 millimeters. So I'm sure they got discarded. Whereas now, digital, they could just, pull it back out and be no problem at all. But I just would remember going, I couldn't wait to see my fight scene with this giant because he was huge. And but it was phenomenal how gifted he was and how he taught me how to punch and just the things he did. And I loved it. It's my first film, right? So I'm still a kid in the candy store going, I'm loving everything that I'm doing. And this was wonderful.
It's an amazing movie. Timeless. I'd love to see a director's cut. I've got a poster of it. I'd love to. Unfortunately, the mask I can't bid on because it's hanging in a museum. But no, when I saw that, I wanted to be a ninja. I think every kid that saw it wanted to be a ninja. And You know what I mean?
Well, Century told me they'd almost sell out of ninja gear, ninja uniforms. And, people would literally buy the ninja outfits and wear them watching these ninja movies. It started that craze.
Yes, I
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
I remember the
My son would have them on. Yeah.
only weapon I was not allowed to, and I always thought this was weird because I had swords, I had claws, I climbed the barn and my claws put holes in them, got a beating for that. But I was never allowed to have the blowgun because I was afraid I would suck back and swallow it, so I never could have a blowgun as a kid. But I could have all the other instruments of death, but I never.
You should count how many weapons are used in that film. And Show told me, he said, Keith, I get paid for all my weapons. He said, so I've got like 20, 30 weapons, and I go, but how do you justify bringing that in, and you're running down the hallway? Where did that come from? It'd be a gigantic apparatus, or he'd be in the pool on the rooftop, and he'd come out with some weapon. I go, where did that come from? He goes, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it.
I love the staff that when he hit the buttons got bigger, and then he tied the rope, and then it was a bow and arrow. I mean, that would be neat if somebody could make that. Then somehow he had a zip line, and then think about it. I mean, he had swords and darts and tonfas and kamas.
I
everything
remember it like it was yesterday. He'd go, caramba. That's how he always said, caramba. He would do that. He'd get into it. He'd go, gee, I'm really a ninja. I go, no, you're not. Yes, I am. I'm a ninja. I said, no, you're not. You're playing a ninja. There's a big difference. No. He'd be serious. No, I'm a ninja.
The only thing I always found, the only thing I ever found weird was that, like, the whole plot is that his best friend is, like, really the evil ninja. It's like, how did you not know your best friend of your entire life he clearly would have had to have gone to ninja training. How did you not know this? That was that and a guy who's trying to set someone up, having to get him a passport and bring his family. That's a lot of money that guy spent just to get a front for his heroin business. But
you've spent way too much valuable time trying to understand any martial arts movie. I've never, ever, because none of them make any sense at all. None of them. They're all fun, And again, I remember one time I was at a signing of a video and my distributor had me traveling around the country. I go into these, back then they had Blockbusters, and I'd sign videos. And I remember saying something negative about one of the movies I had did. And just something like it was hokey or something like that. Yeah. Well, the owner of the Blockbuster says, excuse me, come with me. So I said, yeah, can I help you? She says, it's a female. She says, do me a favor. You might not think those movies are hokey or might not like them, but don't ever say that again. These people love those movies. Don't put them down. So I learned a valuable lesson from her, never to put these movies down. Because sometimes I'm thinking, just like an average person, like, where did this come from? Or, that's unbelievable. But you can't do that. It's cinema. It's a mystery how they do it. It's just, don't worry about it.
I never would have thought until, now I'm thinking of the rooftop fight. Where did all that stuff come from? I mean, he must have pulled 30 things. And the one guy had the bad ninja, he somehow had a flamethrower rig to his. Now it's like, where did all this stuff come from? But yeah, watching it, 30-something years later, I never would cross my mind.
I know it. I haven't seen, I guess, Show in years and years. Like I said, we would visit each other when I go out to L.A., and I just lost touch. And then I heard he moved back to Japan. And his son, I hear, is a good action star now, but that's about it. But no, what fun that was to make it. I put my good friend Mike Geneva, he was in some of the scenes. I put him in, I would take him and put him in different movies. No Retreat, No Surrender 3, I put him in that, and Super Fights. Anytime I can get friends in, I do it that way. Just have fun on the set.
What was it like working in Super Fights? I forgot about that. What was it like working with Rob Van Dam?
Wonderful. Let me tell you, he is just like these professional wrestlers. They're so talented. They're more talented than any of us martial artists. We are pretty good at what we do, and I'm not sure at the level that we can do or jump or kicks or whatever they can do, but they can do everything else. They can project with their faces, and they know how to act already. And they are bigger than life. And I remember our director only had maybe 2 hours worth of filming for Rob Van Dam in that film. Maybe. He just had a few things to do. The director fell in love with him, liked him so much. He kept on expanding his role and giving him more and more the whole day. And the reason we know that is because most of us had to wait in our chairs watching it before we could do our scenes because he just fell in love with this guy, and he should have. That guy was phenomenal. I liked the guy a lot. He was really, really talented. And I went, so yeah, those guys are talented.
I remember reading an interview with him because he had the small part in Blood Moon when he's killed in the beginning. And he's like, yeah, and they were like, do you want to put this on? I'm like, nah, just throw me against that pinball machine. You can throw me through that wall. And, just like, another day for him. He said they were impressed the beating that he took on the bumps that he did.
It was literally, that's the truth. Every word was the truth. It's like, before you throw me against anything, I need a gator back for my back. I need all my stuff on. It's nothing. Those guys do this for a living. And he did all of this stuff. And I just remember sitting back going, my God, these guys are talented. Wow. And so I'm so happy to have done a film with him because he was really good. Well, and we had good stars in that too. And it was just so fun to do that film.
Now, out of today's crop of, do you still watch a lot of martial arts films?
Yeah.
Who do you think is the man right now?
I don't know who the man is. I know this. The reason I think I was blessed in my life is that my time in the film world was during the golden era of martial arts movies.
Oh, yes.
Because then they were only pure martial arts movies. You didn't see martial arts anywhere else but instead martial arts movies. Then it got so popular, they started putting martial arts techniques in all movies. Mm-hmm. Tom Cruise is, phenomenal. Well, everybody's phenomenal. So there was not a demand anymore for pure martial arts movies, other than the Jackie Chan's and Jet Li's and people like that. So there are very few. You don't see pure martial arts movies made anymore. Plus, back then, we had no special effects. They might wire us up a little bit, but we had to do what we did. And some of that stuff, as in now, you can take a 10-year-old girl in the film and make her look like Bruce Lee. It's all different. But I enjoy him now. I'm not really sure if I have a favorite. I just like Jet Li was always one of my favorites. I just thought he was talented. I was a big Bruce Lee fan, and then having spent so much time with Jackie Chan and living with him, and he was so conscious of Bruce Lee because he's following the Bruce Lee era. So everything he did was a conscious effort not to be seen as Bruce Lee. And I would tell him, I go, why? Don't be too concerned about that. Do dramatic movies as well. He said, I can't. He said, at this stage of my life, I can only be the funny guy that do what I do. I cannot have anybody compare me to Bruce Lee. I don't, he was just overwhelmed by that sensation, so I just very fortunate to have worked with some of these guys.
See, and I've always said, and I go on record every time and I say it, I like that era of the martial arts films from the, the mid 80s up until the late 90s. I want to see Keith Vitali fight. I want to see Don the Dragon Wilson fight. Cynthia Rothrock fight. I want the realism. I love my John Wick movies and all that, but watching Keanu Reeves do monkey kung fu is not the same as watching one of you guys. So I'm a very big purist when it comes to martial arts films.
My first actual experience on a set was on Force 5.
Great
and this
movie.
is a movie that Richard Norman was in with Benny Urquidez and had all these phenomenal guys in it, and I just played a bad guy in it. And as a bad guy, my first fight scene was against Richard Norton, and he was phenomenal. I always looked up to Richard, and I remember I was so. And the guy who's the guy who directed Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee. He was the director for this one.
Oh, it was. Was it Robert Klaus, wasn't it?
Yes. So he's there, but he was treating the actors rough. I mean, he's a tough director. So it's my first time being on the set. I'm watching him yell at actors and yell at people. I'm like going, oh my gosh, this is tough. I remember Rich and I kind of hung out a little bit, and I said, Richard, I get a little nervous. I haven't had my dialogue and that kind of stuff. And then he gave me some advice, and I used that advice my entire life. And I was just so thankful he did it. He just said, when you get ready to do any scene, imagine the audience or imagine people watching. They're your white belts. You're the instructor. You're the expert. And your perspective will be that you're the master instead of looking at everybody going, oh, my gosh, I'm under the spotlight. And that always helps. So I was never nervous ever doing a fight scene because I used his methodology, and it worked every time. And I've got to spend some time with Richard over the years. He'd come visit me at my karate school. We'd go out together to clubs and stuff. And oh, my gosh, what a wonderful, wonderful guy. and talented too.
He was one of the first martial artists I ever interviewed, which was, phenomenal for me because I've been a fan of him for so long. Just a great guy. But I mean, how amazing was that your first film, you've got you're working with Richard Norton, Sonny Barnes, Joe Lewis, Benny Urquidez. I mean, that was the cream of the crop as far as martial arts goes back then.
And at the time, believe it or not, they had 50 of the top martial artists in the country all there, congregating. And Pat Johnson was the choreographer at the time. And we're all there. It just happened to be the very time in history that I was the number one fighter in the country. And from all the magazines, I had been on like 13 covers at the time or whatever, so the world knew who I was. Everybody there knew who I was. And so between the takes or we had downtime, the 50 fighters would get together and we'd exchange techniques and throw kicks, or they'd ask me what's going on, or it was just cool to be the center of the martial arts world at that time. Nobody's ever the center with Benny Urquidez there, because Benny, my God, that guy's phenomenal. And Richard Norton, these guys are great. But I had Bill Wallace, and at the time I was staying with Bill Wallace while I was doing this film. And I was staying with Bill Wallace in California while I was doing the film with Joe Lewis. I did 2 films with Joe.
I'm always surprised Joe didn't have a longer run of films. He was really good.
He was his own detriment. We talk about it all the time. I did a couple films with him, and I did some, training with him, all this stuff as a fellow martial artist. But, the best personality of anybody you'll ever meet will be Chuck Norris. He's so engaging and wonderful and loving, and you just want to be around him. You can never say anything I just said about Joe Lewis. He might bitch slap you or call you a name, or he was just during that time. He was just tough. He was not a friendly person, a nice person. He had an ego from here to the moon. And I tell him, I go, stop that. You're killing yourself. He says, I don't care. But one of our scenes, I did the cutoff. I'm the villain. He's the good guy. He's playing the cop. Mm-hmm. As he comes down the stairs in his mansion, I'm the cop. I have to question him. Art Camacho is the director. As he comes down, my first line is I have to shake his hands and then ask him a question. I reach my hand out to shake his hand, and Art Camacho goes, cut. And then Art goes, Joe, shake his hands. He goes, I don't shake people's hands. Let me tell you why I don't. And then he goes into this tirade why he doesn't believe shaking hands. Art goes, I don't care. It's in the film.
It's in the movie.
It's the script.
Yeah, it's the script.
Just do it. Just, that's who Joe Lewis was. Now, phenomenal athlete. I got along with him great. And, oh my gosh, but sometimes he wasn't warm and fuzzy. He just wasn't. He was just so good looking, so built, so ahead of his time. And he taught me, he taught me so much about how to fight. He taught me my movement, so I credit him for all of that. But his personality, he was just, somebody would ask him a question, he'd go, I didn't fly 2,000 miles to hear a stupid question like that. I mean, that would be how he would respond to you. Go, oh my gosh. So everybody was scared to death of him.
Well, he was an intimidating guy.
Oh, and he was. And if it wasn't for that, he would have been he'd tell me, he said, Keith, I should have been bigger than Chuck Norris. I said, you're better looking than anybody. You got the build of Tarzan. I said, what's holding you back? Come on, tell me. You can do it. You're a bright guy. He'd look at me. He goes, I know what you're saying. No, you are. Don't be your worst enemy. I said, engage with people. But that wasn't who he was. He was a fighter first, not an actor. He was pure fighter. And he turned that fighter mentality on at all times. He called it fresh meat. Somebody walk into his karate school back in L.A., he loved just knocking them out. That's who he was.
He was a hell of a point fighter. I can't disagree with that.
Or a full contact fighter. He was a world champion full contact fighter as well. Oh my goodness!
I mean, there was I guess Sonny Barnes was a hell of a champion too. He was another one that never really took off. I was surprised. I really liked him in Force 5. I always liked seeing the bigger guys, slower style.
Well, it was my first exposure on film, working with Robert Klaus and being a part of all these people. But it scared me a little bit because I didn't really appreciate the way Robert Klaus treated his actors. And he'd yell at them. I go, oh my gosh, no, some of these directors, they don't play around, And I said, so I remember going back home and taking acting classes, but it's my first film. And So I didn't think I'd even probably beat another one until I did the Revenge of the Ninja one. And then that one was my first starring film. And then that opened up the floodgates where I could do a series of films.
So do you have like posters of all your movies on your walls?
Yes.
All right.
Well, actually, I have them. I just got them done, believe it or not, the other day. And here in the basement, I have a pool room and TV and fireplace and stuff. And I just got them all completed, and I'm getting ready to hang them up this week. So after all these years, I'm getting ready to hang them up. It's my playroom. Nobody else comes down there other than family. But
I remember talking to Cynthia Rothrock, and I was like, so your house is like all your posters, right? And she's like, no, none of them. And I was like, man, I would have like every room of my house would have those movie posters hanging in it. Well, it's always refreshing to hear somebody that hangs them up. I have a Revenge of the Ninja poster, for God's sakes, and I wasn't in the movie.
I had a guy from Norway just send me one, Alan Peary, and he sent me a poster, and that's what I did. I had it framed. I said, well, this thing looks so good. My wife goes, why don't you put them up? I said, I'm the same way. I don't have any trophies. I've got one gigantic trophy in my office. It's the one I got from the AK Grand Nationals, and it's like 5 foot tall. It looks like something that, it would cost thousands of dollars. It's phenomenal. I can't get rid of that one. But I don't have anything else. And then I have a bunch of awards and stuff that have been for 20 years just sitting in a box. And I said, something? I've got a nice place now. I'm going to put my awards up on my office wall. Nobody sees it. And I'll put my movie posters up. And, it's different than being upstairs where guests come in or whatever. I think I'm some egomaniac, some crazy guy. But but the posters are colorful. They're art. They're pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, I love my Revenge of the Ninja poster. I got Revenge of the Ninja. I got a lot of horror posters. My basement is done like a movie theater, and it's framed posters. I was lucky enough to be able to get one of the swords from American Ninja. I've got that above my fireplace. So I've...
oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I've got a lot of neat memorabilia down there. So I always liked it. I have to get... I need to get a Force 5 poster, though. I do need to add that one to my collection and get a frame for it, because that's cool. A classic film right there.
And it's nice. I at this stage where I'm writing, I do my insurance business, and I'll come home and I'll write, and I'm doing my other stuff, and and it's inspiring to see them, to see some of the awards or see the posters, and it motivates me, gives me confidence that I can do it because I've done it before. So it's just kind of reaffirming. I'm not living in the past. Most people, if you walked in here and you go, oh my gosh, Vitali's lost it. He's living in dream world. He's got posters and all this crap all over the wall. But my son comes in and goes, Dad, you're losing that. I know, it's just mine. You guys don't even come in. Leave me alone.
Oh, my son's 11, but no, he's got all his belts. They're all on his wall, his weapons that he's used. He's still got the, it's because of me. I kept the first board he ever broke. He's still got.
That's cool.
So he has all that. He talked me into, after I had surgery a few years ago and I hadn't trained in a while, and he said, I want to start, because he had earned his junior black belt in Taekwondo, and he was like, I want to take Kenpo, because he liked the movie The Perfect Weapon. And we have a real good Kenpo school here, and I was like, I said, yeah, no problem. And he's like, well, do you want to do it with me? And I, because it'd been a couple of years since I trained, because I had gotten hurt really bad, and I was like, I sure. I said, I've never learned Kenpo. I'd love to learn that with you. So we started training together, but then COVID hit. So we haven't been there in a while. So I'm a little... for me, it was kind of hard because, it's all knife hands and everything, and I was always used to fighting with either palms or fists. So I finally, after like the second week, I was like, I have to go in and pretend I know absolutely nothing, or otherwise I'm not going to learn anything here. So but we were having a good time learning that, too. Even at my age, it's still fun to learn something new.
Well, I keep just reminiscing, and I was so fortunate to be in a sport where my track background was such a benefit. I had strong wind, my lungs with my cardiovascular because I was a distance runner. I'm thinking about how strong my legs were because I was running distance. So when I left running track, dropped my scholarship, and I took up the martial arts. I wasn't a natural at all, by no means, but I could fight all day and I could kick the hell out of somebody. I just had power in my legs like nobody could believe. If you run 20 miles on them, you'll develop some strength. But then the thing about fighting, I soon discovered very quickly is I could beat up Jackie Chan and all the world champions together in one time if they were all so tired they couldn't pick their hands up. So my goal was, when I would fight, is to put pressure on people and to wear them out or wear them down. And when you're tired, that lactic acid builds up, and you're so tired you can't breathe and you can't breathe. Well, guess what? That's when I turn on because of my background, and I could fight for a long period of time. And, oh, yeah, I'm really good at that stage. In fact, there's nobody I can't beat. I can beat a Bruce Lee and his brother if he's tired. So I knew that going in. So how wonderful. Then I was trained by the very best of all time, the Chuck Norris's and Joe Lewis's, Bill Wallace's, Joe Corley. Think about all these phenomenal people. And then to enter a sport where these are still household names. And the reason they're household names in the martial arts is I fought in an era where the magazines still did covers and articles on stars. They created stars, so now it had nothing to do with us per se. It had more to do with the magazines creating who we were that lived on forever. Whereas after about 5 years after I retired, they quit doing it. Nobody knows who anybody is other than maybe MMA fighters. But just think about it. I had Ray McCallum and Longstreet and a guy named Dan Anderson, Super Dan, and Steve Fisher, and Mike Geneva, all these, Larry Kelly, all these just phenomenal people that I had on and on and on that all had magazine covers, all did stories of who they were. So not only was I trained by the very best people and had mentors, the best in the history of martial arts, I competed during one of the best eras ever. And then I left it at a very young age, 27. I was number one for 3 years in a row, and I said, now it's time to get out, and I broke into films. So I really think that I really did it the right way, I believe.
What are the odds when we have another big, martial arts convention, big get-together, we could see an exhibition with you and Don the Dragon?
Oh, that'd be cool. Don's one of my favorite people on this planet. We did an event in Europe, and Lauren and I, and Richard Norton, Cynthia, all of us went down. And we flew to Berlin, and they had one of those expos, and we all sat there and signed autographs for a week. Oh, it was wonderful. And I've always known Don, and we've always been big fans of each other. And I spent a lot of time with Don, and he's so brilliant, he's so smart, and that guy fights forever. I had been retired for like half my life, and he still was competing at the time. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, he came out of retirement a few times for fights, and he won them. Yeah,
no, he's an athlete, and we had to get this. Him and I were walking, and my wife's even with me. We're walking down in Berlin at the wall, what do you call it, the Berlin Wall, the one that came down, right? Yeah. It's historic, and they still have army bases there, and they still have the remnants there. And Don Wilson goes up to one of the guards and takes up his leg with his left leg and kicked him right in the head. Just touched his helmet and brought it back down. And then the guy kind of smiled at Don. I went, God, just so flexible, just picked up his leg and smacked this guy in the head like it was nothing.
Oh, yeah, he was one of my favorite fighters to watch. The right kick, that he used for his jab and everything. It was just smooth. Yeah. So
his timing, he was smooth. And I base people on not just how great of fighters they were, but I base them on how great people they are. And I'm telling you, Don is as good as they get. Yeah, just imagine all the people I've been exposed to, all the who's who, the names, and I've got all these wonderful people now in Texas that all these, Alan Steen and Rudy Smedley and the Ray McCallums and all these guys, Roy Kerbins, all these wonderful people that they've given me, awarded me the black belt, what they call a Texas black belt. So I've been spending time down in Texas with them, and then they, along with my good friend Bruce Brucci and Mike Geneva, they flew us down and awarded us a 10th degree black belt, and we had a cast of black belts sitting on the panel that three just died recently. So it'll never happen again. I mean, some of the most famous Skipper Mullins and all these phenomenal famous people, Pat Burleson, all these wonderful people, Bill Wallace out on the board. So how wonderful to be part of history and have these great sit on my board for a 10th degree. And yet, most of them were my mentors coming up, and then I was in an era where I got a chance to train with all these wonderful people. So I couldn't be any more blessed or lucky.
I can't thank you enough for taking the time, away from your schedule to talk to me today. You got a lot of fans that read and listen to my stuff, and I know they're going to love listening to this. And like I said, I really can't thank you enough. You're a hell of a fighter, and you made some
Thank
amazing
you.
films. And, it's been a real honor for me.
Well, thank you, Corey, so much. I've enjoyed it, and just stay in touch. I like to, keep it going in the future.
Now, for the people that are your fans, are you online? Do you have a website?
Yes.
Can they find you on social
I have
media?
a wonderful one. It's called Keith Vitali Enterprises with an S.com. And I had it professionally done. I'm so proud of that. It's got fights on it. It's got my films on it. It's got my history on it. It's got so much. And I really, really love it.
Are you on Twitter or Instagram?
Instagram, I do very little. And then on Facebook, I do some little bit. I'm trying to get ready, geared up for the film world. And it's best to stay politically neutral if I can. Get my films done so I'm not attacked and stabbed in the eyes and everything else.
Yeah, I was never a Facebook guy until my partner was like, you need to go on Facebook. You can meet people that way. I was like, you're crazy. Well, that's how I found you. So, I mean, there is a beauty in Facebook. Instagram, I have, but I think I'm too old. I don't understand it quite well.
You're right. But believe it or not, I have fans from 36 different countries. Countries I didn't even know were countries. I go, what's the name of this country? I'm a history major. I'm pretty intelligent when it comes to geography and history. And I go, I've never heard of your country before. But I go, how in the world could you know who I am from these countries? It's because of the magazines and the films and the covers and all of that. So just being on Facebook and having my fan base still send me notes almost daily, hey, you impacted my life or you changed my life. I hear about Revenge of the Ninja more than any other film. Oh, I saw that movie and it changed my life. It got me into martial arts. I hear that over and over.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, it's a top. Not only is it a top 5, martial art film, it's a top 5 favorite film of all time for me. So it's
that's wonderful.
Yeah, it holds a very special place for my heart. I got to show it to my son and all. He likes it. It's I'll be showing it to my grandkids one day.
Well, good. Well, listen, Corey, I've really enjoyed the time, and feel free to call anytime.
Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. You have been listening to the Chronicles of Hollywood History. Thank you from Gomez Richmond Productions.